were the earlier Greek astronomers, living in Asia Minor, better informed, and their successors, because they could draw on Mesopotamian sources. Hipparchus, in fact, confirmed in his writings that his studies were based on knowledge accumulated and verified over many millennia. He named as his mentors Babylonian astronomers of Erech, Hour6of, and Babylon. Geminus of Rhodes named the Chaldeans the ancient Babylonians as the discoverers of the exact motions of the moon. The historian Diodorus Siculus, writing in the 1st century BC, confirmed the exactness of Mesopotamian astronomy. He stated that the Chaldeans named the planets in the center of their system was the sun, the greatest light, of which the planets were offspring, reflecting the sun's position and shine. The acknowledged source of Greek astronomical knowledge was, then, Chaldea. Invariably, those earlier Chaldeans possessed greater and more accurate knowledge, and the peoples that followed them. For generations, throughout the ancient world, the name Chaldean was synonymous with stargazers, astronomers. Abraham, who came out of the Chaldeans, was told by God to gaze at the stars when the future Hebrew generations were discussed. Indeed, the Old Testament was replete with astronomical information. Joseph compared himself and his brothers to 12 celestial bodies, and the patriarch Jacob blessed his 12 descendants by associating them with the 12 constellations of the zodiac. The Psalms and the Book of Job refer repeatedly to celestial phenomena, the zodiacal constellations, and other star groups such as the Pleiades. Knowledge of the zodiac, the scientific division of the heavens, and other astronomical information was thus prevalent in the ancient Near East well before the days of ancient Greece. The scope of Mesopotamian astronomy on which the early Greek astronomers drew must have been vast, for even what archaeologists have found amounts to an avalanche of texts, inscriptions, seal impressions, reliefs, drawings, lists of celestial bodies, omens, calendars, tables of rising and setting times of the sun, and the planets, forecasts of eclipses. Many such later texts were, to be sure, more astrological and astronomical in nature. The heavens and the movements of the heavenly bodies appear to be a prime preoccupation of mighty kings, temple priests, and the people of the land in general. The purpose of the stargazing seemed to be to find in the heavens an answer to the course of affairs on earth: war, peace, abundance, famine. Compiling and analyzing hundreds of texts from the 1st millennium BC, R.C. Thompson, the reports of the magicians and astrologers of Nineveh and Babylon, was able to show that these stargazers were concerned with the fortunes of the land, its people, and its ruler from a national point of view, and not with individual fortunes as present-day horoscopic astrology is. When the moon, in its calculated time, is not seen, there will be an invasion of a mighty city. When a comet reaches the path of the sun, field flow will be diminished, and uproar will happen twice. When Jupiter goes with Venus, the prayers of the land will reach the heart of the gods. If the sun stands in the station of the moon, the king of the land will be secure on the throne. Even this astrology required comprehensive and accurate astronomical knowledge, without which no omens were possible. The Mesopotamians, possessing such knowledge, distinguished between the fixed stars and the planets that wandered about, and knew that the sun and the moon were neither fixed stars nor ordinary planets. They were familiar with comets, meteors, and other celestial phenomena, and could calculate the relationships between the movements of the sun, moon, and earth, and predict eclipses. They followed the motions of the celestial bodies, and related them to Earth's orbit and rotation, through the heliacal system, the system still in use today, which measures the rising and setting of stars and planets in Earth's skies relative to the sun, to keep track of the movements of the celestial bodies, and their positions in the heavens relative to Earth, and to one another. The Babylonians and Assyrians kept accurate ephemerides. These were tables that listed and predicted the future positions of the celestial bodies. Professor George Sarton, Chaldean astronomy of the last 3 centuries BC, found that they were computed by 2 methods, a later one used in Babylon, and an older one from Uruk. His unexpected finding was that the older Uruk method was more sophisticated and more accurate, and the later system He accounted for this surprising situation by concluding that the erroneous astronomical notions of the Greeks and Romans resulted from a shift to a philosophy that explained the world in geometric terms, while the astronomer priests of Chaldea followed the prescribed formulas and traditions of Sumer. The unearthing of the Mesopotamian civilizations in the past 100 years leaves no doubt that in the field of astronomy, as in so many others, the roots of our knowledge lie deep in Mesopotamia. In this field, too, we draw upon and continue the heritage of Sumer. Sarton's conclusions have been reinforced by very comprehensive studies by Professor Onuga, our astronomical cuneiform text, who was astonished to find that the ephemerides, precise as they were not based on observations by the Babylonian astronomers who prepared them. Instead, they were calculated from some fixed arithmetical schemes which were given, and were not to be interfered with by the astronomers who used them. Such automatic adherence to arithmetical schemes was achieved with the aid of procedure texts that accompanied the ephemerides, which gave the rules for computing ephemerides step by step according to some strict mathematical theory. Neugebauer concluded that the Babylonian astronomers were ignorant of the theories on which the ephemerides and their mathematical calculations were based. He also admitted that the empirical and theoretical foundation of these accurate tables, to a large extent, escapes modern scholars as well. Yet he is convinced that ancient astronomical theories must have existed, because it is impossible to devise computational schemes of high complication without a very elaborate plan. Professor Alfred Jeremias Handbuch der Altorientalis Geistkultur concluded that the Mesopotamian astronomers were acquainted with the phenomenon of retrograde, the apparent erratic and snake-like course of the planets as seen from Earth, caused by the fact that Earth orbits the Sun, either faster or slower than the other planets. The significance of such knowledge lies not only in the fact that retrograde is a phenomenon related to orbits around the Sun, but also in the fact that very long periods of observation were required to grasp and track it. Where were these complicated theories developed, and who made the observations without which they could not have been developed? Neugebauer pointed out that in the procedure text we meet a great number of technical terms of wholly unknown reading, if not unknown meaning. Someone, much earlier than the Babylonians, possessed astronomical and mathematical knowledge far superior to that of later culture in Babylon, Assyria, Egypt, Greece, and Rome. The Babylonians and Assyrians devoted a substantial part of their astronomical efforts to keeping an accurate calendar. Like the Jewish calendar to this very day, it was a solar-lunar calendar, intercalating the solar year of just over 365 days with a lunar month of just under 30 days. While a calendar was important for business and other mundane needs, its accuracy was required primarily to determine the precise day and moment of the new year, and other festivals and worship of the gods. To measure and correlate the intricate movements of sun, earth, moon, and planets, the Mesopotamian astronomer priests relied on a complex spherical astronomy. Earth was taken to be a sphere with an equator and poles. The heavens, too, were divided by imaginary equatorial and polar lines. The passage of celestial bodies was related to the ecliptic, the projection of the plane of Earth's orbit around the Sun upon the celestial sphere, the equinoxes the points, and the times at which the Sun, in its apparent annual movement north and south, crosses the celestial equator, and the solstice is the time when the Sun, during its apparent annual movement along the ecliptic, is at its greatest declination north or south. All these are astronomical concepts used to this very day. But the Babylonians and Assyrians did not invent the calendar, or the ingenious methods for its calculation. Their calendars, as well as our own, originated in Sumer. There the scholars have found the calendar, in use from the very earliest times, that is the basis for all later calendars. The principal calendar and motto was the calendar of Nibiru, the seat and center of Enlil. Our present-day one is modeled on that Nibirian calendar. The Sumerians considered the new year to begin at the exact moment when the sun crossed the spring equinox. Professor Stephen Langdon tablets from the archives of Graham found that records left by Dungi, a ruler of Ur circa 2400 BC, show that the Nibiruan calendar selected a certain celestial body by whose setting against the sunset it was possible to determine the exact moment of the new year's arrival. This, he concluded, was done perhaps 2,000 years before the era of Dungi, that is, circa 4400 BC. Can it really be that the Sumerians, without actual